don't all British people speak with a British English accent? No? What do you mean? Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the big differences between accents in the north and the south of England. Alright mate, and welcome to the BritSpeakPod, the podcast designed to help you understand British life, British culture, and of course, British English. So, let's get cracking. Hey up mate, how you doing today? I'm not too bad, thanks for asking, and welcome to episode 021, episode 21 of the BritSpeakPod, where we're talking all about British accents and the big differences between the accents in the south of the UK and the accents in the north. But before we get into all that good stuff, if you're new around here, nice to meet you. My name is Dan. Do me a favour, subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And if you're not new around here, welcome back. I hope you had a good week. It's nice to see you again. So today then, we're talking all about British accents and how they can differ between the north and the south of the country. But I know a lot about the northern accents. You know, I grew up in Yorkshire. I'm from the north of England. I know quite a lot about accents from that area, but I didn't really spend that much time in south. So it's time to call in a very special guest. And special is pretty accurate when it comes to this guest. So maybe you guys know him. He's an English teacher. You know, of course he is. But he's also a bit of a YouTube star. He's got over 500,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. He's an author. He wrote my favourite English book, which is called A Really British Guide to English. Absolutely amazing. But more than all that, he's just a nice bloke. So without further ado, here's Tom from Eat, Sleep, Dream English. Tom, welcome. How you doing, mate?
Hey, how you doing, Dan? It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. So for anybody who's listening that maybe has not met you before, can you tell people a bit about yourself?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm from London originally, and I have a YouTube channel, Instagram account called Eat, Sleep, Dream English, where I teach sort of fresh, modern British English. That's the plan. I've been teaching for 15 years now around the world. Taught in Spain, Argentina, Hong Kong. And yeah, now online, just trying to teach kind of authentic English, trying to help people who come to the UK kind of understand their surroundings, understand the world around them. That's kind of the premise of what I do.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, like, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. We've both been in that situation where we've been in a new country and we have to deal with the real life language that's a bit different from the textbooks. But today I've actually brought you on because I want to talk about accents and the differences between the north and the south and all these different accents that you'll find in the UK. And let's be fair, there's loads of them. But I'd like to ask you, what are some big linguistic differences that English learners should kind of listen out for, or they should try and pay attention to when it comes to understanding British people?
I guess for us, you and I, like the big north-south divide. So if someone is coming to Britain and they're trying to understand accents, I think that's where you begin with like the big north-south divide of a few sounds that are differentiated between us. And that's where you can start to begin to be, okay, that's a northern accent, that's a southern accent. And then obviously within the north and the south, there are lots of different accents. And then of course we've got Scotland, we've got Wales, we've got Northern Ireland, we've got lots of other parts of the country. But starting with the north and south, the kind of the R and the right?
Okay.
The trap bath split, as we linguists like to call it, that's the kind of biggest one, I would say. So laugh and laugh,
Sure.
Words like that. So I think that's probably the first one I think about. And then maybe the and the the pull and put. So yeah, pull and put. Split. So yeah, those are the two big ones I would say between us.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into that because obviously we're both on different sides of this divide, so it's going to be quite interesting. Let's rewind a little bit to bath trap bath, whatever you want to call it, and let's delve a little bit deeper. So what's actually going on here? Like, which is which, and what does it actually mean? And let's dive a little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, in the south. We have the two differentiated sounds, right? We have the and the r. So yeah, like I was saying with laugh, that's how I would say it, with that sort of the R sound. But yeah, up in the north, it's an A sound. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know why this exists. Do you have any idea as to why we have that difference?
It's something to do with the way that the language was like modernized, but it didn't work in the entire country. I don't really know exactly why, but all I know is somewhere about Nottingham, between Nottingham and Derby, you can kind of draw a line across the country, and above that it's Bath, and below that it's Bath, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. It's a funny one, isn't it? I'm not entirely sure as to why we do it. But yeah, like ask is another example, right? Ask and ask,
Sure.
dance and dance. Yeah, things like bath and bath. Obviously, that's the big ones. This is another thing as well, is that accents are so individual that someone might follow these rules or they might not. So, for example, for me, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
Just do it.
But like, okay, so for example, the word bastard, right? Bastard. Now, it's a great word, and when I say it with that sound, with that kind of a southern bastard, it sounds a bit ridiculous to me. I don't like the sound of it. I really love the way Northerners can say bastard. Oh, you bastard. So I say bastard because I just think it sounds better. It doesn't mean that I'm from the north and from the south, but you can kind of choose the accent that you want, right, and adopt the sounds that you want. So maybe that's one thing to think about. And do you do the same?
No, for me, like, it's very specific. Like, most of the time, I sound like Sean Bean, bastard. He was very
Yeah.
famous for this word, right, from Sheffield. So
Yeah.
most of the time I do that. But if I'm kind of being a bit dramatic, or, if I'm in a funny mood, I'm like, oh, you bastard, right? So sometimes you do play around with it. But the good thing about
Yeah.
accents is, like you said, they're so individual. You can just kind of customize it to whatever you like. If you think bastard sounds a bit weird, you can say bastard. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to be like, oh, he's suddenly turned into a northerner. No, I just chose one word that's different. It's fine. Don't worry. I'm still down here. It's no problem. So, good stuff.
I definitely there are some words that I really warm to in different accents. So we're going back to that the put split, so that and talking about that pronunciation feature. Again, in the south of England, we'd say both sounds and but in the north it's just So words like love, like I do like the word love, like all right, love, how you doing? All right, love, how you doing? In a sort of Cockney accent. But the way Northerners say love, all right, love, it's just so nice. It's so warming and kind. So there are some words like I just like butter. I have a bit of butter, please. It's just I just really like the way the North says some sounds. So
Yeah, that's lovely. I think the funny thing here is that on this podcast, I often try and do impressions of different accents, and I'm really shit at it. But you've come on here and you've belted out some absolutely amazing accents so far. So I'm sure people listening can appreciate this more than anything else. So. Going back to this, what you said as the pull, I can't remember what you said, but for me, it's this foot strut split is what I know.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
This is just a different linguistic feature. For me, strut and foot have the same sound, and that's how it works. But for you, I guess they're different, right?
Yeah. Strut and foot. Yeah, definitely. So that and sound. But this is a huge issue, I think, in general with English language teaching and students learning is that for so many years students have been told you must learn received pronunciation, and that's the only example they've had in course books. Teachers would almost change their accents to sound that way, and so it's become this issue where it's I think the statistic is that I think it's between 3 and 4% of British English speakers speak with received pronunciation, which is tiny. So this model that we're giving students is not representative of the majority of English speakers. And yeah, like for you, that just isn't how you say the word. So why are you going to teach that? And in reality, students aren't going to hear it said that way, right? They're going to hear your version or my version. I mean, it depends who they're speaking to. So the model that we give students, of course, should be our own, right? It should be the sounds that we're making. And that idea that what's right and wrong, that doesn't make any sense. There's no right and wrong. It's what you say, what I say. They're neither right nor wrong. They're right for you and it's right for me, right? And I think as teachers, we have to, teach our accent. And I think students really have to be aware or understand that there is a variety. And especially if you're coming to the UK, you'll be confronted with a variety of accents, and it's useful to kind of at least have a base knowledge of what sounds you might hear. So understanding that there is a difference between and in some places, but in other places there aren't. It's a big issue. And I think actually you mentioned when you came on my YouTube channel, you talked about if someone is coming to the UK, let's say they're going to university in Manchester. Well, okay, it'd probably be useful to start to identify some of the main pronunciation features of Manchester. For example, they have a short, a clipped E at the end of words like city. So it'd be city, money, and it's not a huge thing, but it's, if you're going to Manchester, why not start to understand the pronunciation features of that area? Because you'll have a lot of contact with that accent. So yeah, just preparing, I guess, for which accents you're going to be in close contact with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, of course, like you said, RP is the thing that everybody assumes is British English, and then when they rock up in Manchester and people don't sound like that, they can be a really, overwhelming, and it can feel like, well, actually, I don't know anything. I can't understand anybody around me, so confidence goes down. You don't want to communicate because you're like, oh, I can't understand people. I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's not a nice existence when you're in a new place, surrounded by new people, and you suddenly feel like you can't actually communicate with anyone around you. Life gets pretty hard and it gets pretty lonely pretty quickly. So I think one of the big benefits, like you said, is spending a bit of time just to learn the base level of these different accents that you might encounter on your trip or in your life or whatever it is. But do you think that learners need to choose a British accent and try and emulate it? Do you think that's important?
I think that students should have the accent they want, but I think they should stay true to their own accent. And I'm not here to tell anyone what accent they should and shouldn't have. It's entirely up to them. I personally love it when I hear a bit of their L1, where they're from. It's because your accent is kind of a part of who you are. It tells us where you're from, maybe your cultural influences. It can be class. It can be all kinds of different things. And so there's a lot to love, I think, in an accent. I think there's a lot of your own personal identity wrapped up in your accent. So trying to be authentic to who you are, and then, but also, considering, that perhaps if you move to Britain, you might want to pick up a few features that sound more British, and that's perfectly fine, I think.
I really agree with what you said earlier about, your accent is part of who you are. And I think a lot of pressure is put on people to adopt a British English accent or an American English accent. A lot of, you need to change your accent kind of mentality exists out there. But as long as communication happens and the meaning is understood and you're speaking clearly in a way that is not causing any barriers, I think rock on. Whatever your accent is, it's fine, right? So
yeah,
for me, I definitely agree with you on that one. So that's really, really good. But let's imagine for a second then that somebody decides, okay, I'm going to learn Tom's accent. I'm going to have an accent similar to Tom. I'm going to learn modern RP, whatever you want to identify it as. What are some steps that they can start taking if they're in that situation? What kind of step 1, step 2, step 3 to get going would you suggest?
Yeah, well, it's something that we talked about a lot, which was just the first step of any language acquisition is to listen and to absorb. So I would suggest finding almost like a pronunciation model or an accent model, depending on how you want to look at it. Someone whose accent you really admire and you like, and just start listening to as much of their voice as you can. So I've talked about this before with people where I had a student who wanted to learn, modern received pronunciation, and I sort of gave her a few examples. Here are some famous people that have that accent, and choose one that you really like. And she chose Gemma Chan, the actor Gemma Chan, and she just listened to her just interviews, just as much as she could of her voice, and I got just analyzing. Okay, what's the rhythm of her speech? What's her intonation? Where does she stop? Where does she pause? How does she say? Things like laugh. Okay, it's with an R sound. Okay, so just noticing, I think, first of all, picking someone whose accent you really like and noticing how they speak and going from there. And then obviously then you want to start practicing yourself. And I think something that's really useful is minimal pairs. I've always used minimal pairs as a way for students to identify the difference between two sounds. So again, if you're talking about the R and the ah, then getting words that are like that and kind of moving between them. You can do it obviously with lots of different sounds, like three and tree, right? The th and the t. You can, kind of do minimal pairs where there are similar words with just one sound that's different, and practicing. So yeah, a couple of ideas there.
No, really helpful. I'm sure that's going to be really useful. Like I've always said, accent and most speaking starts with listening, to be honest. Like you've got to listen a lot, and then eventually you've got to notice what's happening, and then it's starting to like do it yourself and copying or emulating and remixing it in your own way, if you like. So I think that's a really good way to get started. So yeah, that's been a really in-depth discussion. But before we kind of wrap up, the last thing I wanted to ask you is like, how can people like find you on there? Like, what are they searching for? How can they find you?
Yeah, just Eat, Sleep, Dream English. That's the YouTube channel. I sort of came up with that concept of Eat, Sleep, Dream English when a friend of mine said that he fully understood. He was learning Spanish, and he fully understood that he'd got to a sort of proficient level when he started dreaming in Spanish. It was that idea of like, okay, you consume it, and then once you start dreaming in that language, you feel like you've mastered it. So yeah, Eat, Sleep, Dream English is where you can find me. And we've done a video on there, which people can find, English and Friends with Dan from BritSpeak. That was a great chat that we had about all things British. And you were talking about berate as being your favorite British English term. Berate.
Berate, yeah. I've mentioned it multiple times on here, so I'm sure people know what I'm on about by now.
Yeah. I've tried to use it at least once a day. You know how it's like, people do like 10 press ups a day. I'm trying to use berate once a day.
And, in a year's time, basically from Yorkshire. That's
basically from Yorkshire. I just want to sound like Sean Bean. Exactly
That's it. That's what we're all aspiring to.
There's a great Yorkshire tea advert that sort of plays with Sean Bean's accent. And he's like, proper like, right, come on, lads, let's go, let's brew. And you're like, yes, this is what I want. This is the accent I want.
On a complete tangent, though, I'm a big fan of Sean Bean, but I'm not a fan of his name. Like, if we look at the spelling, it's either Sean Bourne or Sean Bean. Pick one. You're not having it both ways, mate. I'm not having that. But I did want to say thanks again for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you about this stuff, and I'm sure the people listening have absolutely loved it as well. So thank you so much for your time today, mate.
No worries, mate. I really appreciate it. We could speak for another 2 hours about accents, honestly. But
I'm sure we'll get you back.
I'd love to. Yeah, it'd be great. Thank you so much for having me.
Wicked. So there we go. Hopefully now you've got a better understanding of the difference between the northern and the southern accents in the UK, thanks to Tom from Eat, Sleep, Dream English, who's a lovely bloke. I'm sure you'll agree. Make sure you go check him out. He's on every platform, but especially YouTube. He's got loads of videos, including one that we made together. Go and check it out. And Tom also is an author of a book, like I mentioned right at the beginning. It's called A Really British Guide to English, and I absolutely love this book. It's like a Bible of British English. It's got, loads of slang terms, like a slang dictionary. It's got loads of cultural tips about life in the UK, and it's even got some like practice section so you can practice British English. And if you're learning British English, you kind of really need this book. So it's available on his website. There's the digital book, which you can buy and download right now. Or I think there's a physical book as well that you can get the actual real life book if you're into that kind of thing. He's also got loads of courses and stuff. So make sure you check it out. The link is in the show notes. And if you use the code BritSpeak10, you'll get 10% off if you decide to buy his book. But yeah, other than that, I hope you had a wicked time listening to this podcast. I had a lot of fun making it. It's a little bit longer than usual, but I'm sure you can accept that because it was so good and there was so much information. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Or you can go to britspeak.co/BritSpeakPod. And you'll never miss an episode, but that's it for today. And I'll catch you in the next one. See you there.